Some truths don't come out in arguments. They don't come out in slammed doors or broken plates. They come out in whispers when the house is finally quiet. My name is Robert Hale. I am 80 years old. And after 43 years of marriage, I finally told my wife the truth. Not because I became brave, but because I became tired. Tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix. Recording this at the small desk by our bedroom window. The same window she opens every morning, even in winter, because she likes fresh air moving through old rooms. That's what she says. She's asleep right now, or pretending to be. We've both gotten good at pretending. When I met her, I was 37. I had already decided what kind of man I was going to be. Responsible, steady, dependable, I wore those words like a pressed shirt. She met me at a church picnic, yellow dress, hair tied back, laugh that didn't ask permission. I remember thinking she deserved a man who had everything sorted out. I did not, but I let her believe I did. The lie wasn't one big thing. That would have been easier to confess. It was smaller than that, quieter. I told her I loved my job. I told her I was happy staying in the city. I told her I didn't mind postponing children for a few years. I told her I was fine. That word carried our whole marriage, fine. The truth was I had once wanted to leave the city. I had wanted to try painting again. I had wanted to take a risk on a small coastal town where a friend offered me space in his studio. But when we got engaged, she told me how safe she felt in the city, how her parents were nearby, how she couldn't imagine starting over somewhere strange. And I remember nodding, saying, "Of course, this is home." I said it so gently she never questioned it. And something in me folded up quietly that day. Not dramatically, just neatly. We married in spring, small ceremony. Her father cried. I held her hands and promised honesty. I believed I meant it, but I had already decided that love meant not disappointing her. Years passed in ordinary ways. Mortgage payments, dinners at 6. Work promotions I didn't want but accepted because they sounded impressive at gatherings. We had 2 children. I love them in a way that feels carved into bone. That part was never a lie. But even when they were small, and I would sit on the living room floor building wooden trains with my son, I sometimes felt like I was watching another man's life unfold. A good life. Just not the one I once imagined. I never told her that. When she would ask, "Are you happy?" I would smile and say, "Of course I am." And she would relax. That relaxation in her face became addictive. I kept feeding it. There was a night, maybe 15 years into our marriage, when she found my old sketchbook in the closet. I hadn't opened it in years. She flipped through the pages slowly. "You were good," she said softly. I shrugged. "That was a long time ago." She asked why I stopped. I told her I got busy. That wasn't the truth. The truth was I stopped because it hurt to want something that didn't fit the life I had chosen. But I couldn't explain that without sounding ungrateful. So I let the moment pass. And over time, I became very skilled at letting moments pass. The first time I realized what it had cost me was at 65. Retirement party, cake, speeches, a gold watch I never wear. People said I had given my life to the company. I stood there clapping politely while something inside me whispered, "You gave something else too." On the drive home, she held my hand and said, "You did it, Robert. You built a good life for us." And I looked at her profile in the fading light and thought, yes, I built a life, but I wasn't entirely inside it. I didn't say that then. I didn't say it for another 15 years. Until last week. Until the doctor used the word progression in a voice that sounded too careful. Until I realized time was no longer something I could postpone. That night, after dinner, I told her we needed to talk. She looked frightened before I even began. And I hated myself for that. I almost swallowed the truth again, almost said, "It's nothing." But I didn't. I told her I had not been fully honest all these years. Her face changed slowly like weather shifting over water. I told her I loved her. That part was never false. But I also told her I had built parts of our life out of silence instead of conversation. I told her about the studio, about the town by the water, about how sometimes, even in the happiest years, I felt like I was living slightly to the side of myself. She didn't interrupt. She just listened. And that silence was heavier than anger would have been. We sat there for a long time, two old people in a quiet kitchen, 43 years between us. And the truth finally sitting at the table too. She asked me one question. Why didn't you tell me? Not accusing, just tired. I didn't have a good answer. At 37, I thought love meant sacrifice without discussion. I thought being a good husband meant smoothing out my own edges so she would never feel unsettled. I underestimated her. That's the part that aches the most. All those years I believed I was protecting her from disappointment, from instability, from fear. I never considered that she might have wanted to know me fully, even the restless parts. She told me something that night I wasn't prepared to hear. I would have gone with you, she said. Just like that, no drama. I was scared of leaving because I thought you needed this job. You always spoke about it like it mattered so much. I almost laughed. All those years, we had been protecting each other from dreams neither of us admitted out loud. Two careful people, two polite liars. She told me she had once wanted to open a small bookstore cafe. Nothing big, just a place with soft chairs and second-hand novels. I had never known that. In 43 years, I had never known that, because she had seen how seriously I took my promotions, my schedules, my responsibility. She didn't want to disrupt that. So she folded that part of herself neatly too. We were very good at folding. The cost wasn't explosive. It didn't destroy us. It was quieter than that. It was the slow narrowing of who we were allowed to be. There were small signs over the years. Her lingering in bookstores longer than necessary. Me slowing down near art supply shops but never going inside. Conversations that almost turned toward something vulnerable, then shifted back to safer ground. We weren't unhappy. That's what makes this hard to explain. We laughed. We raised children. We held each other through funerals and illnesses and long winters. But there was a thin layer of distance. Almost invisible. I used to think that was just what marriage became over time. Now I think it was the space where truth should have lived. After I told her everything, she reached across the table and took my hand, the same way she did the night of my retirement. Her hands are thinner now, veins more visible. "Do you regret me?" she asked. That question broke something open in my chest. "No," I said immediately, and that was the clearest truth I have ever spoken. I don't regret her. I regret my silence. I regret deciding for both of us what the other could handle. We sat there until the kitchen clock sounded too loud. Then she did something unexpected. She stood up and said, "Show me." I didn't understand at first. "Show me what you would have painted." So I brought down the old box from the closet, the sketchbook, the dusty charcoal pencils. My hands shook more from age than emotion, but they shook anyway. I drew something simple, the outline of a shoreline, a small wooden building near the water. Nothing impressive, but when I finished, she looked at it as if it were a photograph from a life we had almost lived. "It's not too late to visit," she said quietly. "We both know there are limits now. My body reminds me every morning." But in that moment, something softened, not because we could redo the past, but because we were finally standing in the same truth. I wish I had trusted her sooner. I wish I had trusted that love could survive honesty, instead of spending decades polishing an image of steadiness. The strange thing is, since that night the house feels different, not brighter, just more real. We talk more carefully now, but also more openly. There's less pretending, and at 80 years old that feels like a small miracle. Yesterday, she sat beside me on the porch and asked me to describe that coastal town again. the one I never showed her. So I told her about the smell of salt in the air, about the way the light hit the water in late afternoon, about the quiet hum of boats rocking against wooden docks. As I spoke, I realized something. The dream had changed. It wasn't about escape anymore. It was about being known. If I had told her at 37 that I was scared, that I didn't know if I was choosing the right path, she might have taken my hand the same way she did last week. All these years I thought strength meant certainty. I see now it might have meant something softer. There is a particular loneliness in being admired for being solid. People lean on you. They thank you. They call you dependable. And inside, you wonder what would happen if you admitted you're not entirely sure of anything. I never gave her the chance to see that version of me. Until now. Time does something strange when you know there isn't much left of it. It makes old decisions feel closer. It makes small moments heavier. When I look at her across the room these days, I don't see the yellow dress anymore. I see the woman who would have gone with me. And that knowledge is both comforting and painful. We cannot rewrite 43 years, but we can sit in the truth of them. And somehow, that feels important. Last night before bed, she said, "I'm glad you told me." I asked her if she was angry. She shook her head. "I'm sad for the younger us," she said. "But I'm grateful for the older us. I do know how much time I have left. The doctors speak carefully. I listen carefully. But I do know this. The lie was never that I didn't love her. The lie was that love required silence. If you're still listening to an old man talk at his desk by the window, maybe just sit with that for a while. Not offering advice. Just a story from someone who waited too long to say something simple. My name is Robert Hale, 80 years old. And last week, for the first time in 43 years of marriage, I let my wife see the whole of me. It didn't fix the past, but it made this quiet room feel honest. And for now, that's enough. If any part of this felt familiar, you can stay a moment longer, or share what it stirred in you. I'll be here by the window, listening to the air move through old rooms.